So thank you, Gayle. Thanks for doing the exhibition at North Park. It's a really lovely exhibition. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to have you talk about the work for people who are not able to visit the gallery. And so we're going to talk a little bit about your time at North Park and the work you're making then, and then we'll move to a PowerPoint of your current exhibition.
All right.
If you want to talk a little about your time at North Park and your artwork that you were doing at the time, that'd be good.
Artwork at the time when I was there 24 years, I don't know, it was different, that's for sure. I had done some abstract work, and I was kind of inspired by architecture at that time. And I kind of wanted a spiritual element to it. And what I did was kind of make my own spiritual element, which was a white ribbon. And the ribbon kind of flowed through the architecture. And it was kind of fun to do with large colors. At that point, I was doing very large things, maybe 5 by 5, 5 by 6 foot canvases, stretched to myself and framed them myself, I guess, too. So I can't do that anymore. Get down on the floor and push it around like that.
Gayle, do you remember, I created that show at Fourth Presbyterian Church, and I think you did a really large painting for that. Do you remember that?
Yes, I think it was about 15 or 16 feet squarish.
Yeah, it was a huge painting.
Well, that one I used the ribbon in it too, but it was quite different than the architectural one that's in my living room. It was of a spiritual nature too, but it included a figure, not exactly a human figure, but a human symbol for a human. And that was usually a red object, sort of rectangular. And how the ribbon was working around that figure was kind of a spiritual event in my ideas.
So what year did you retire from North Park? 2000. And maybe talk about your move up to Wisconsin and your shift to landscape painting.
When my husband and I retired, we decided to move up to northern Wisconsin, way up top near Minocqua, if you know where that is. And nature was all around it. My husband wanted to go there because he loved to cross-country ski, and he wanted lots of winter. And winter was beautiful, and summer was beautiful, and fall was beautiful also. The nature just kind of gets into your soul, and I do miss the nature from up there. Trees, rivers, lakes, eagles, deer, all kinds of animals, not all the time, but sometimes. I think the eagle flew over almost every day, which was kind of nice. And we stayed there for 15, I stayed there for 15 years. He died after 8 years. And I just liked staying there, but it got to the point where I couldn't take care of the house and have come back down to Illinois.
Well, we're glad to have you back in the area. Sorry that you had to leave such a beautiful area. Yeah, why don't you talk about your studio?
Yeah, I had the lower level in a house, but the lower level was going right outside. So as people came in, I had my own gallery, so I could put up artwork and transfer it and change it. And then in the back, I had a really nice big studio where I could have 3 stands, so I can be working on 3 paintings at one time, and a big closet and lots of room to work. Now I'm working in a small bedroom, and so I have to work a lot smaller and make it a little bit different.
All right, let's move to the PowerPoint, and here we go. So this is what's actually a series of photographs I put together that's of part of your exhibition, the part of the exhibition that's in the interior of the gallery, taken from up on the ladder. That's why it has that kind of strange curved perspective. So I think the title you gave the show is pretty self explanatory, but did you want to say anything about the inspired by nature title?
Oh, no, that's just what came to me because that's my inspiration while I was there almost 100% of the time. I find nature, I take photographs, I remember things, and I could walk in the woods and hike. I skied in the winter, so I saw beautiful winter areas. Fall was probably my favorite because it had a lot of color. Summer gets a little tired because it's so much green, but it was beautiful almost all the time. Spring wasn't so hot. We called it mud season.
Hmm.
But after that, we had beautiful, beautiful nature everywhere we went.
Well, let's take a closer look at the paintings. And so we're going to sort of walk around the gallery, and I'll give you, like, this is an overall view of the one wall that's on the west side of the gallery. And here are the first two paintings. If you want to talk about the media, talk about the location, whatever you feel is of interest.
Okay, the one on the left is part of Wisconsin River from up north. And I was standing on a road that went over the water from a lake. And it was beautiful fall color. And I just was very inspired by the moving water and the beauty there.
And is the other one, which is, I think the one beside it is also pastel, right?
Yes, they're both pastels. The other one is quite small, and it is a different river, and I can't remember the name of it at the moment.
Here are the next two on that wall.
Yep. Did you see a lot of paths and roads because I did a lot of hiking. We did biking and in the woods, which was beautiful. The one with the road, I think we must have been heading home because it's kind of remind me of going home.
I think I have a close-up. Yeah, I have a close-up with that. A question I had about this. I know that some of the paintings you did in the show you made up. That is, you didn't use a photographic reference. Was this one of those paintings?
This is one that I made up. I had a canvas. I painted it black for some reason, which was kind of unusual and rare. And I just put the path down and decided the tree should be in front of it. And I felt like I was a bird looking down on it. So it's called Bird's Eye View. I don't know. I put the trees in like I've been doing, even when I saw them in photographs. But no, I didn't have a photograph on this one.
Currently, I just briefly I want to touch the fact you're still painting. Are you still doing some from photographs and some from memory?
Yes, I guess that's basically what I've been doing.
Yeah, I actually like these ones from memory as much or more than the others. There's something very, not sure the right word for it. They feel very present. I don't know how else to say that. But anyway, let's move on to the next one.
This one is a pastel, and this one was done on paper rather than on what I would normally use, which was suede board for the pastels. I was sitting on a bridge on this one, and it was just that we had a group. I found a lot of good artists up there, oddly enough. I was surprised. And we had a group of 8 to 10 people that would go out once a week and go someplace special. And this is called Turtle River. And we'd all be doing the similar thing, but none of them looked alike, of course. And so there's Turtle River.
So that's interesting to me, and I can relate to this, but that when you see the image, you remember a community. It's the image for the average person is, it's a riverscape, so to speak. But for you, it has that sort of, it's about community because you were out working.
It reminds me, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, let's move to this next one. This is something of an anomaly for the show, and I think it's the only one that prominently features something, or rocks. It's only, so maybe seems like you had some special reason for making this. Did you say that? I can't remember. It seemed like the other night.
Right on the lake of Lake Superior. We were up there doing ski racing. Well, I don't race, but my husband does. I just like to do it. And all these rocks, the sun was shining on them so strongly. So the light and the shadow grabbed me. And the shapes of the rocks with the lines, I don't know, it just grabbed me. I don't always understand why I take something, but I think mostly I worked from photographs on this one.
Yeah,
It was too cold to sit outside.
it's a beautiful painting. And not that the others, and it says the others are beautiful as well, but this is an exception to the others in terms of the prominence of the rocks.
Yeah, I put rocks in paintings, but these were the center of interest were the rocks here.
Right. Let's see what's next. So this piece, I intentionally put it on a wall by itself in the gallery because for me, it feels very central to your work. And I think for me, it's the one that's probably the most moving. So maybe talk a little bit about this painting.
Well, this painting is from an experience where I went skiing. That was my husband that was skiing and had these absolutely huge trees. And the sun was coming down between some of them in a very unique way. I needed the figure in order to really show that the trees were very large. It also reminds me of my experience of skiing there a number of times.
Huh. Something just occurred to me. Are you know of the artist Caspar David Friedrich, the 19th century German romantic painter?
Kind of remember, not too much.
Well, I need to get you a book of his work. He had this device he used frequently in paintings called a Rückenfigure, and essentially what that German word means, as I understand it, is it's a figure in the painting with their back to you, and part of their function is they're a surrogate for you, the viewer, in terms of placing you in the space. And it hadn't occurred to me, but there's a way in which your husband in this painting is that sort of Rückenfigure. Yeah, anyway.
Well, he's probably a surrogate to me because I can't catch up with him when he skis. But light and shadow, I think, are things that attract me to doing a specific painting sometimes. This I had photographs.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've seen this several times, but like when you start talking about that, suddenly I'm thinking about the way in which the light in that central part is just really, like, it's sparkling, and you have a sense that you're not in that, you're not in a brightly lit space by comparison. I think people may have seen this in the original photograph, but do you know what the measurements are for this approximately?
Offhand, I would say 20 by 30 or more than 30, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's somewhere between 30 and 36 inches.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, this is a detail of the painting.
That's kind of interesting to me. I haven't really looked at the detail.
Yeah, when I look at the detail, one thing I wonder about is, are you using, this is kind of a silly technical question, but it looks like in the center of the painting where the yellow leaves are, it kind of looks like you've taken like a crappy brush and sort of just like stamped up the paint on.
How about a sponge?
Oh, it's a sponge. Okay.
Natural sponge.
Yeah. That's cool.
The sun was really hitting them. Even though they were green, they almost looked yellow. Yeah.
Mm.
This one, I was interested in the clouds. So I made a painting with clouds. And then I decided, you got to have something more in there. And the birch trees are so beautiful in the summer and the fall when there's color, but they're also quite interesting in the winter. And so I just decided to put the birch leaves over it, and the eagle, which I see so many times, almost every day, just needed to be there. I think instead of thinking so much intellectually, I think I'm drawn to things more emotionally.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think it's, and this is another one of those paintings then that's an invented painting, right? I mean, it's based on things you
Well, the
knew.
cloud started, but the rest of it is invented.
Yeah,
I didn't have any photograph other than to do the clouds.
it's really interesting. I'm not, I don't make too much of it, but when you invent, there's a way in which the painting, it feels uh, like more sculptural almost. It's really pretty fascinating. And this is about 30 inches tall, right? I think the next slide might be of it in context. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, right, that helps.
That's a very blurry photograph. Sorry about that. All right, we're going to move to this next one.
Well, this one, I can't see the center, but that was important to show the distance because that was a very big lake. And the space goes all the way back. And I kind of wanted to get the depth in the artwork. And I was on a friend's pier. I don't remember the name of that lake at the moment, but it was summer. Mostly, I think, maybe a little bit of color coming in the fall. The lakes were beautiful. I loved to swim in them. We did have a boat, but I prefer to swim rather than go in the boat. So the water is beautiful. And I hadn't done much water before I went up there. So that was a little bit challenging, whether it was still or it was rough or just sort of smooth.
You mean you hadn't painted water?
I hadn't painted much water, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is really the visual phenomena of water in various contexts is different. It's really interesting.
It is.
It's kind of fun to pay attention to something like that. Here we have the same painting, but the two others we hung on the same wall.
Yeah, you could see a little bit of the space there and the island back in there. Give it distance there. You want me to talk about the other two also?
Well, yeah, but I liked what you were saying at the reception last night about why you paint the edges. And here we have all three of these paintings.
Oh, yeah, you can see them all on this wall. Yeah. Well, I was honest about saying I really can't afford old frames. But I sort of like the idea that it wraps around and you come up to it on the side and it continues across and then across the other side. And I paint them as I go as much as I can, but sometimes I forget parts and have to go back and add them afterwards. And I do the top and the bottom too, but nobody really sees them, but make it kind of a three-dimensional area. But I don't know, I just didn't like frames sometimes. Big clumsy frames on a painting can spoil it. And I kind of like things plain too.
It's interesting because I encountered sometime within the last 24 hours, I encountered another artist who was doing paintings. Oh, it's one of the students at New York Academy of Art I was talking with this afternoon was wrapping the image around the edges. And we were talking about the meaningfulness of that, how it sort of shifts. Like when you don't do that, there's this sense of a single plane, but when you wrap it around, that sort of complicates that understanding in a way that I think is interesting.
It gives it more of a space thing, I think, too. Deeper space.
So here's the one that's in the middle.
Okay, this is a Madeline Lake, a Madeline Trail. There is also a Madeline Lake, but I was skiing with my husband. He went down that hill real fast and I just stayed at the top and took some photographs. But I think mostly it was memory on this one because the photograph didn't take the color very well. So I can't see it right now myself, but the blue, purple, and the red, orange, I think just worked real well together. The sun was going down. It was probably 3:30 in the afternoon in the middle of the winter up north. So it was very cold, but still very, very beautiful.
This is kind of a silly question, but sometimes silly questions are interesting. Which of these paintings would you not sell?
None of them.
You would sell all of these, you'd be willing to sell?
Sure, but yeah. I could paint things similar. Again, they don't always come out as good the second time you try to do the same image. But I got too many things. why can't I let somebody else enjoy them?
Yeah, I understand that, but there's a couple here that I'm thinking this, if this was mine with the story you're telling, there's no way I would sell it. Uh, yeah, again, this has that quality as a painting that's you're largely painting from your imagination, and it's fascinating to me because it doesn't, again, it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't look more realistic, but it feels charged in a really interesting way. So I'm going to move on to this, the third
Well,
painting.
most of my work is personal to some degree because I've been there. I've been there all these places. Like, don't take somebody else's photographs. So I can remember being out there skiing when I see it, but I don't like mine to be perfectly realistic like you would get in a camera.
Yeah,
And I change trees, move trees, change colors, things like that. But they also do represent the places where I was.
this is kind of interesting to me. It wasn't intentional in terms of hanging it, but the painting that we just looked at, the purple one, there's that sense, like you said, you're going downhill, it's going away. Here you have the opposite phenomena where the river is coming towards us.
It's the top of a big waterfall. It comes from quite a distance. And I kind of like the top part where it wasn't just all water rushing down, but these little hills that it would go over and how it would spread out and how the trees were affected up there. There was a path along the side. I know I took some photographs as I went down that path. Rather than doing the great big waterfall, I thought it was more interesting this way.
So this would be, how far was this from the waterfall?
It wasn't too far. Oh, I don't know, not more than a city block, but that went down the hill.
Okay. I was just, that's it. Again, it's an interesting sort of fact that the average viewer wouldn't know, that this precipitates a waterfall that's coming up. And, you know, it's another one of those things that, that seems really a charged, metaphorically charged thing, a waterfall. Anyway, yeah, it's beautiful.
Most people come to see the big waterfall. They don't necessarily walk up the hill and see the smaller ones coming above it. So,
well, you've said that now twice, and I think that that's true, that your work in general is not about nature as spectacle. I mean, some of the locations look like they could be a place a tourist would look, but in general, I don't find your paintings of nature to be about spectacle, which a waterfall sort of naturally moves towards the idea of nature as spectacle. It's a, you know, it's a place, you know, it's a place you visit, the place where you yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'll just move on.
yeah.
So this is the same painting, but I had a picture of it and I had the photograph. I thought it was kind of interesting, the difference between them. So I thought I'd put them both up here.
Well, that's kind of interesting you say, because I actually made 3 paintings of the same image. I was doing a workshop, and instead of starting a painting and finishing it in what I had an hour or 2, I don't know, to do the workshop, I decided to show what I did at the very beginning of making that painting. And then I had another painting that was sort of like the middle of it. And then the last painting was almost finished. So I thought it was a better way of teaching, but I ended up with 3 paintings, not exactly the same. They're all a little different in color and spacing. I don't have the third one anymore, but that was just my own driveway. And I can't see it, but there are the big, they were probably pine trees, or they could have been oaks, but there was a small white tree coming out of it. The birch was somehow growing between those 3 big trees, which fascinated me. So it was just a walk down from my house. So again, it's a personal type of thing, but I guess maybe all artists are personal in that way.
Yes, yes, and no. I mean, I don't know landscape painters, you know, how they approach, but it again, when the thing gets personal for you, it seems to have a certain kind of charge to it. You know, the image on the left I got from you. I don't know if it's the same painting. As I look at it, the color is different, but detail wise, they seem really very, very similar.
Well, these two are the same painting.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One on it and the other one doesn't, but maybe the lighting was different when I took a photo.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
But I think one of the ones that I ended up with did have more yellow in it, more fallish looking.
Yeah. This is one of those paintings that kind of feels like, and you've alluded to this, it's the kind of thing that the average person would just walk past. Be like a tree with another tree. But then you talk about that one small thin tree coming up between the two, and how that's really is kind of curious. Why is that there? Yeah, it's really fascinating. All right, let's go on. This is the final wall of artwork. And I didn't get a detail photograph of the top and the one on the left, but I did get a shot of this. So maybe talk a little bit about this. This seems a little different than most of them.
Yeah, it is. Somebody gave me two canvases. The woman that has a craft shop, and nobody else did work on canvas. So I said I would be happy to have them. And they were thinner ones, I did paint around the side, but it didn't give that deep effort. And it was in the time where we had everything locked down. Couldn't go out and see nature, couldn't go out and take any photographs or anything. So I just started painting. And I think I had a river in mind, but not a specific river. But the rest of it was all imagination and memory. I think they go together.
Well, there's such a sense of stillness because there's no ripples in the water.
Yeah. What did I call it? Peace like a river. That's what.
Peace like a river.
Peace like a river.
Yeah, that's a great title for this. And there's this one. I think, is this the one that when Sherry wrote about your work, was this the one that you talked about at a little more length?
Yeah, she asked me which one was my favorite. That wasn't so easy to do, but this one is a place that I went to a lot of times. It was very close to us, and it was a state park, a Wisconsin state park. And that was a clear river. We did a lot of hiking around the river and back. Not at this particular spot, but I swam in that lake a lot of times. And I was kind of fascinated the way nature gets left. It dies and they don't go take it away. They leave it out in the water like that. So I kind of like the trees going up and the trees going over, and the water being able to see through the water. That was a little tricky water too. So, but again, it was a place that I'd been many times and liked, and took a lot of photographs of that area actually, but picked this one. I don't remember if I've done another one maybe.
This is a really gorgeous painting. The thing that two things really jumped out at me the other night when I was looking at this. One is the water, that water over towards the right and then going back towards the shore. There's a real sense that we're looking through the water and seeing sort of the algae or whatever it is along the bottom of the water. The other part about it, this painting that I think is similar to other paintings, but the background, the opposite shore is, if you look at it closely, it's painted like there's this, it looks like you're just sort of messing around with paint. If you get
do a lot of that, as I start a painting, after I've got the composition sort of laid in, I will do very loose brush strokes, but they always get a little tighter as I go. Sometimes I think I should just leave them all that way, but.
Well, this painting says yes, because that background area, like when I'm looking at the painting as a whole, I'm not thinking that part of the painting is not painted very carefully. But when I start looking at it, it's just like wonderfully messy, not in any sort of bad way. But then there's places, one particular place in that it's almost dead center. I'm pointing, that doesn't help you at all.
I can't see either. There's the main tree coming down, but I can't see the bottom of it.
Well, right in the middle of the painting.
Well, the yellower one that was coming out.
Oh, there's a little dab of yellow. right in the, like back in the shadow of the other trees, that it's like light is coming through and hitting that one spot.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah,
So
dark and light, the values really make a big difference to me. So I'm not attracted to things if they don't have a strong shadow and dark and light somehow.
I think you've probably talked about this sufficiently, but if you want to talk more um, about, well, for instance, is there some sort of association for you between painting and prayer? Let me put it perhaps a different way. I get the sense that when you were painting, there's this kind of, you're paying attention to nature, particularly when you're painting, in situ from in the on site, that you have this kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's not like you're praying to nature, but I get the sense that, again, this idea of being attentive to the world, paying attention to it, I think of as a kind of prayer. Again,
Well, I think more as a spiritual experience, but prayer
Right.
can be part of it. And sometimes I pray before I start a campus. But
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and
When I'm talking
along
about,
the lake, I have sat out on a Sunday morning and sat on a picnic table and meditated and read scripture. So not this specific spot, but yeah, nature draws me in that spiritual way.
yeah, when I say prayer, I don't mean so much like articulating something as much as a kind of spiritual attentiveness, maybe. I don't know I'm not sure why this painting made me think of that, but there is that, as I said earlier, this kind of way in which this painting kind of, it kind of unfolds as you look at it more. So
Yeah, there's more detail in the background and in the water.
I think this may be the last of your paintings, but let me see. Nope, there's one more shot of the wall of paintings.
The one over on the left or the one at the top you're talking about?
Either one of those.
Well, the one in the black frame, I was interested in the birch trees there and a lot of paths and roads. And I don't ever put down the cement I always make it look like ground instead of a paved road, but it was a paved road. But there's a lot of wind and the leaves blow off, and I was trying to get that effect that they were blowing across the way.
And then the one at the top.
The one on the top, I did a lot of hiking. My husband didn't like the hiking so much, but I went out a lot alone on hikes, and I kind of came up over a hill, and then it was really sunny on that side. I think that was a memory piece, not a photograph piece. So, probably just me walking through the woods. I mean, that's sort of a spiritual experience for me too.
Sure.
Just being able to get away from cities and lots of people and just be in nature as it grows itself, not as some gardener
Right.
grows it. I'm not saying that's bad. I think that's beautiful too, but something about just the way the nature takes care of itself that is special too.
Yeah. Do you get up to the what is the garden that's up north near North
Botanic
Park?
Gardens,
Yeah.
Chicago Botanic Gardens. I've made a few paintings from that, but they always looked a little bit more like photographs because I don't know, in nature it's not so perfect.
Right. No, I that's why I was asking, because I like to go there, but it looks very manicured. It looks very much like a Japanese garden.
Well, there it is.
Beautiful. That's very beautiful, but it's not what you encounter if you just go out. Yeah, we actually live near a park, a Bussey Woods Park near where we live. And one thing I like about that park is you can wander off and there's areas that clearly are not manicured at all. So anyway, I think I think that's the last slide of your show.
Probably is.
This is a tender little sign that one of a new gallery assistant painted this, and I really found it to be rather sweet.
Yeah. Are you one of the birds and I'm the other bird?
It could be.
And a lot of fun. So yeah.
Yeah. So any last words for well, maybe this would be a good moment to say, what would you say to the seniors, the senior art majors, or maybe other students in terms of your life experience? What should they be doing? What not should, but what do you think would be helpful for them to think about in terms of moving forward as someone who makes art?
Well, one thing I said to my students when they graduated is, whenever I see you, I'm going to ask if you're still doing your artwork. So you have to keep on doing it, even though you've got another job, you got a family, you may have kids, and it gets harder and harder. You still need to do it to some degree. Just keep it flowing. It might be slow at times. Maybe there's times when you kind of lose it, but you can get back in. So I guess that's what I would say, because there's all kinds of different artwork they could be doing.
Sure. No, that's really good advice.